All right, so we are getting started here for the e-commerce brand mastery summit August 2022. So if you are joining us live, welcome. For those of you who are watching the replay, thank you for joining us. So for those of you who are watching live, I have these panic freakouts about technology because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So if you don't mind, this would be a huge favor. Click the little thumbs up icon wherever you're watching this, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube. And then also, if you don't mind, maybe just comment. Kevin, I can hear you. It just makes me feel better that I didn't mess something up that I should not have messed up. So that does happen. I know it sounds kind of like a ploy, but with technology, sometimes the microphone doesn't connect, or I've had it where like the stream wasn't working properly. So I'm excited because I'm joined here by Jason Yelowitz from Quiet Light Brokerage. And so we will be talking about how you can maximize your time in this upcoming summit. And then just a little bit down the road, Jason will also be giving us his insight into if you're thinking about possibly selling your business one day, how that's going. What is going on in that world? What are those options looking like? So I'm super excited about that. So real quick, Jason, do you mind just sharing a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, great. Okay, thanks, Kevin. I appreciate being here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my background, I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I've started a number of online and tech businesses in addition to a number of real estate businesses. And I have had strikeouts and grand slams and almost nothing in between. And you learn a lot more from the failures than the successes. And then for the last 12 years, I've been an advisor with Quiet Light Brokerage. We go by Quiet Light, and I help people sell their online businesses. And I just learned through my own experience, there's just little tiny subtleties that can make the difference between a smooth exit and screwing up the deal. And that's why I do it.
Well, that's that little edge is something I'm sure a lot of people want to know about. And that's one of the things we're working towards getting you in this summit is being able to really maximize that edge. And so, there's a lot of things you can do to work on, sales and profitability. And a lot of that stuff we're going to be covering in this summit. So that's one of the things I'm super excited about. Now, I just want to give a quick thank you to Leo and to Sally Ann. They both mentioned they can hear us. So that's always good news. So some of my panic freakouts are gone now. So Leo and Sally Ann, email me if you don't mind, and I will give you access to something. And so why don't we do this? Email me, kevin@maximizingecommerce.com. Let me see if I have a banner here where I can just throw that up on the screen. Kevin@maximizingecommerce.com. Email me, tell me that you were one of the winners, and I will happily give you access to either my upcoming expand to the UK fast track workshop, which will be coming up in September, or if I've already promised you that as part of a package you may have already bought, then I will give you access to something else similar to it. So I reward participation, so make sure everyone's participating, because that's always a good thing. So hello to the Nat Lifter. Hi. Hello to Sam L. And hello to Dana says, woo woo, can't wait for the summit. Yes, well, thank you. So Dana is my neighbor in Florida on the opposite side of the state. What's that?
I can feel the excitement in the air. This is fantastic.
Yeah, and that's one of the things is that, we bring together just a lot of really amazing people in this space, both e-commerce sellers who are just looking to take their businesses to the next level, as well as to learn and get that edge. And then also we have some amazing speakers that are sharing the things they've learned and what works along the way. And then one of the things that's interesting is a lot of the speakers will like email me like, hey, how do I get access? I want to make sure I can watch some of the other sessions, because everyone's trying to learn from each other, because anyone that says they have a monopoly on good ideas is probably incorrect.
Well, one of the things from my entrepreneurial days is I feel like there's all this pressure to always act confident and what's going on and you're in control of everything. I find that the real lessons were from when I got humble and asked other people and said, look, I'm having this problem. and they're like, oh yeah, I had that, that happened to me 2 years ago. Here's how you fix it. And the real key was just being willing to humble myself and acknowledge that I didn't always have everything in control.
Yeah, and that's such a good point. Is you kind of have to let go a little bit of what you think you're out in control of everything, and it's one of the entrepreneur world is really all about the results you provide, and some of the is you got to figure out like where do I legitimately need to improve my results. Whereas when I was in the corporate world, it was all about perceptions.
Yeah.
And it was all about, how do you position yourself to the right people? And I don't really miss that. I'll just say.
Ironically, there's some of the perception issue with startups too, especially if you have outside investors. You feel a whole lot of pressure to always put on a good face. But the truth is, those outside investors want to know what's really going on. And if you chose well, they should be interested in hearing your reality as opposed to a highly glossed over version of it. And, a lot of times they can help. So, again, it just comes down to admitting, I don't know what I don't know.
Right, exactly. I don't know what I don't know. And so that's one of the things we're going to focus on in the summit is helping you with some of the things you might not even know you don't know. And that's one of the things I learned as the guy who gets to put these on is, a lot of times people see me going like this, and it's not that I'm, not paying attention or whatever. It's oftentimes, I have note cards and I'm like writing out like, okay, oh, that's a good idea. I should employ that into my business. And so if you have your ticket to the Brand Mastery Summit, that's great. If you don't, I will put a card up here in just a moment showing you how you can get access to that. And then we sent out login credentials to everyone who's already purchased the ticket. So we'll go over how you log in and all that fun stuff because I don't want that to get in the way of it. And then after that, we will get into a little bit about how you can maximize some of your learnings for value, and which value is not just profit now, but potential value if you go to sell later. And then also where the market is now, because I think there's probably a lot of questions and back and forth and all that fun stuff. So wanted to give credit to a couple other people who said hi. So Adam, hi. Yvonne, hi from the UK. Hi from Florida. And forgive me, Jason, you're joining us from the Northeast?
I'm in Reno, Nevada.
Oh, that was totally wrong. So from Reno, Nevada, the opposite side of the country of my guest, which I knew that, but for some reason I messed that up. And then Toon K is joining us from Germany, and also Martin from South Africa. So we have a very international audience, which is great. And so one thing just to highlight is anytime I talk about timing, 9 times out of 10, if I don't say otherwise, I am talking about Eastern time. It's just because those of us on the East Coast of the US are very selfish that's just kind of the time that people give of when in doubt. And so if you're not sure the timing, you can always go on a timing calculator and compare Miami, New York to your local area, and that might help you. But as far as do we have this content in French or Spanish? So I get this question more and more lately, going back to the international audience of, hey, can you do German subtitles? Can you do French or Spanish? Right now, that's not on my roadmap, but it's something maybe to consider for the future. But as of right now, everything's in English, which I'm sure there's probably tools you could probably go and have it transcribed and whatnot. And then also the comment here is when late, blame it on East Coast time. Yes.
I actually sold an online business a number of years ago where its main function was to convert time from wherever you are to wherever someone else is. And I realized if you say GST to an American, we don't know what the heck you're talking about.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So that's, you're probably talking about, are you talking about GST as a time or goods and services?
Yeah, as a time.
Okay.
Because a lot of times I'll deal with international clients and they're like, I'm GST +2 or -3.
The Greenwich time.
What country are you in? So I can ask Google.
Yeah, or they say UTC, but I think UTC is sometimes off from Greenwich. I don't know either. I just know
the GMT instead of GST. Sorry.
I don't know. You know what it is? I get told in March spring forward, and I get told probably here in 2 months to fall back. So
Exactly.
whenever they tell me daylight and starts, then I go from there. So other question I missed last time, some best practices, ASINs like that for best conversion rate or click-through rate or brand indexing. I think we have some content that should answer some of those questions. Definitely keep an eye out for them. Pretty sure Kevin records his events. Yes, we do. And so if you don't have access to VIP, you'll have access to the sessions ongoing. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and give everybody a quick tour behind the scenes. Let me just bring this up here real quick. So you should have received an email from me if you've signed up. If you have not received an email, go into your spam folder, because the email has a link where you would go to log in, as well as your username and password. And some email providers don't like that combination and think it's more likely to be spam or junk. So check your spam or junk folder. If you still have not gotten it, email me letting me know, hey, this is the email I signed up from. Every now and then there's weird situations that we can fix, but just let me know. So once you have that login credentials, you're going to log into a page that's going to look kind of like this. So you're going to put in your email address that you registered with, that were the one that arrived in your inbox, as well as your password. And so you put your email address and password in. Now, one little weird quirk is, for whatever reason, it's not Brand Mastery Summit or Maximizing E-commerce. It's Kartra.com. So Kartra, for whatever reason, the login experience says Kartra.com. And so it's this little subdomain. Well, there's a good chance when you've logged into other places, nothing to do with maximizing e-commerce, you may have logged in somewhere else, and you might have a password on the Kartra.com domain that doesn't match the password you're logging in here. So worst case scenario, delete anything and maybe even try an incognito window or private browsing to make sure that you're starting fresh without any saved passwords from your browser or password manager. Once you're in, it's going to look a bit like, where did I put it? Oh, this right here. So you're going to log in, and it's going to look, let me see if I can get that to come up. The page you go into is going to look like this. And so when you're in this, depending on when you're watching this, if you're watching this live, you probably won't see these little dates here. So this is the content for each day. So each day at 9 a.m. Eastern time, we will add more content. So if you wanted to watch, let's say, Vanessa's session, you would click on that, and then you would click here, and then we will add, which we don't have right now, but we'll also have any links that the speakers mention at the end of their sessions down below. So you'll be able to access that. And then, of course, one thing I do suggest on all of the summits is, if the speaker has something that, you know, was really a good takeaway from you or something you appreciated, leave them a comment. People like seeing that thing, or seeing things like that, I should say. You know, speakers are people too. They want to hear good things. They're doing these really as a labor of love, that they like passing along the things they've learned along the way to help you. And so if you find something is beneficial for you, please just a quick comment. Hey, I really appreciate that. Or I had never thought about this. You know, so those type of, you know, feedback really does go a long way. And so would greatly appreciate that if you could leave any comments with feedback like that in this section, you know, underneath each speaker. So then come Wednesday, we'll add Wednesday's sessions. Now, one thing that's interesting is each day we're just going to be adding more content until the summit ends. And then if you want, you can always go to the digital swag bag and see some offers from our sponsors. For example, you could click here to get a business valuation from Quiet Light, who are on here with Jason, and maybe Jason will reach out to you, talk about your business. But when you're in this members area, there's a few things I would recommend. And so we do have some live sessions each day as well that aren't going to just be right over here. And those are like, probably you're watching this right now on YouTube or in the Facebook group. Go ahead and subscribe to the Maximizing E-commerce YouTube channel and the join the Facebook group, just to make sure that you do have access to that. And that way you get the notifications when we do go live. And then these sessions here that we're adding every day at 9 a.m. Eastern time, you'll have access until at least midnight Eastern time on Friday night. And so after that, you would need a VIP upgrade. And so you could always just go to, you click this little guy here, you click here. Maybe you already upgraded to VIP. That's great. If you're watching this live as we do this on Monday afternoon, we will be raising the price of VIP after midnight tonight Eastern time. So the price will be going up. So if you're thinking about upgrading to VIP, now is the best time to do it, because after the summit is over, we will have had a couple of additional price increases, and then we will just stop offering these sessions. So if you want access to these, grab them now while you still can. And you can always go to maximizingecommerce.com/VIP. And if you need help navigating, you can always watch this little video here that I've created, which will guide you through all this. Now, one thing also just to note real quick, I'm showing you this on desktop, but if you're watching on mobile, it's going to look a little different. So you might not see all of this because of the screen resolution might be different. So you might see like a little hamburger icon, something that looks kind of like this. You can probably click on it. It's usually in the top right-hand corner. Or if you're on tablet, for whatever reason, sometimes there's like a little circle off to the left, which will access this area here. So for whatever reason, sometimes depending on the size of your screen, you might see like a little circle off on the side, or you'll see something in the upper right-hand corner, depending on the size of the screen, if it doesn't look quite like this. So just some random things to point out there. And then really just pace yourself. And so really what I would like to suggest is I go back to Jason and myself, is that as you're going through this, pace yourself on your learning, because we have over 20 sessions. And some people, when I do these, they purchase the ticket and they're going to have the access till the end of the summit, and they make it their part-time job for 3-4 days to go through all of them. But pace yourself and focus on what's going to get you the most value. So what advice would you have, Jason, for folks as they're going through a summit like this, or any conference where they're learning?
Yeah, I attended a number of summits and conferences in my entrepreneurial days. The biggest suggestion I have is recognize that you're drinking from the fire hose. And if you walk away with 1 or 2 or 3 good tidbits that you can apply to your business, and or 1 or 2 good relationships that you can either build a business relationship or a friendship, I consider it a win. I think too many people feel like they have to take in absolutely everything. I mean, I once, with one of my businesses, I went to a summit. I walked away with 1 business relationship from someone who I met in the hallway, not in a session or anything. We ended up doing millions of dollars of business together. I couldn't care less what else happened at that summit. So just stay focused on what do you need for your own business, and try to zone in for that rather than absorbing everything that you're going to hear.
Yeah, and some of it too is, and that's a good point. Some of it is the content, and a lot of people, sign up for the content, but then you end up making sometimes relationships, even in virtual environments like this.
Yeah.
Random side note, about a year ago, I had on my podcast a gentleman named Justin Guarini, who the name might sound familiar to people. He was the runner-up to Kelly Clarkson in the first season of American Idol. He performed on the season finale in front of 50 million people. Amazing story, great guy. And the reason he and I got connected is we just happened to be on a Zoom call together. And it just like one of these like entrepreneurial things, because he was working on an entrepreneurial venture of himself. And I just happened to reach out to him afterwards and was like, hey, because I remember looking on Zoom and like, I recognize that face. I'm like, oh, I know that name. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's him. And so I just reached out to him and like, hey, we were both on, this Zoom call together. Would you like to be a guest? And he was like, sure. Why? Because we had that connection. Anytime you can find connections with people, like even if it's just like, hey, I noticed we were both in the Brand Mastery Summit because maybe you were mentioning something in the Facebook group, or they were commenting on something you wrote, or something along those lines. Like, it's amazing just finding some peripheral connection like that, even
Kevin,
with the people in the comments.
Kevin, would it be accurate that for the Zoom call where you met him, you don't remember anything else from the Zoom call?
Not a lot.
Exactly. That's my point. Is don't feel like you have to absorb everything. Zone in on what do you need for your specific business. Are you expanding overseas? Listen for content related to that. Are you having trouble with VAT tax or U.S. sales tax? Listen for content for that. Are you wanting to sell your business one day? Zone in on that type of content. But I mean, that's not meant to be a plug. It's meant for whatever your business needs. That's, don't try to take it all in. Just try to focus on what you need.
Exactly. And one of the things that, I try to warn people on these summits, and I know I'm kind of perpetuating this by having a summit with all this content, but I know different people have different needs for different stages. And as the business owner, the only person who can really assess where you are today and decide what you need to do is you. And so we provide you all these different options and all these different outlets. But yes, to Jason's point, you might feel like you're drinking from a fire hose, and that is natural. So one of the suggestions I have for folks is, write a list of stuff down that you're excited about, and then maybe take a day afterwards and then digest through them. Like, okay, what is the one thing I could work on next? Because you can't do everything. What's the one thing, if I start working on this, this is going to give me the maximum value of return of investment, not just of money, but of time, to implement this and the effort and what I might see on the back end, not just that sounds cool and different and exciting. Because sometimes people get too caught up in new and different and exciting. So
do you find with operating businesses, I find that like during the workday, I was always like eyebrows deep in putting out whatever fire was in front of me. But then later, if I was in bed or in the shower or taking a walk, that's when I would do the long-term planning. I'd start thinking, how do I get out of this, rut that I'm in where I'm always putting out fires and grow beyond it? And I feel like that should be more formalized. It should be X amount of your time for what's in front of you, and then X amount of your time for longer term focus.
Absolutely. And so it's all about, taking time. I've been hearing this phrase a lot lately that you just mentioned there, and it worded in slightly different ways of, sometimes you have to kind of separate yourself from the business, to really get a bird's eye view. Because to your point, like during the day, sometimes you can be so focused in what you're doing, you don't have the ability to see outside of, this. You need to see farther out.
I had an interesting epiphany, which is any business, and I mean almost any business, can be a passive income business, because whatever you're doing, there's somebody that can be hired. If you can grow big enough to afford to pay competent people to do whatever task you're doing, it can be passive income for the owner. And some people love, burning the midnight oil. For me, I've always wanted to be more hands off. So I think it's interesting to always be thinking, like, if you're literally fulfilling orders from your living room, how do I move to the next step and get, FBA or somebody to fulfill my orders? If you're having supplier issues, is there a liaison that knows better suppliers that can be the main person and reduce your headaches and your time? I think it's always a question of figure out where your pain points are, and then be thinking, how do I, what's the solution that maybe I can't implement it today, but I can be working towards.
Exactly. And I think sometimes too, it's also getting, as you kind of mentioned there too, outside help from other people to get their thoughts.
Yeah.
One of the best examples of this is a story I've heard Jeff Bezos give a few times, is that in the very, very, very early days, that when they were busy, like everybody would get into a conference room and start boxing up orders. He says a lot of times they're working like on the floor, kind of like, down on their knees. And he said that, after a while, your knees would start to hurt. So, I said to the team, why don't we get knee pads so that way our knees won't hurt? So he thinks he's got a solution to the problem. And his team said, why don't we buy more tables? And he's like, that's a good point. It sounds so basic, especially for companies so well known for logistics,
Yeah.
but they had to iterate and try different things. So if Jeff Bezos, who clearly has done well for himself in figuring out logistics and getting packages to people,
Yeah, it was literally
came up
on
with an idea like that in the moment.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so,
It shows you how you can grow out of it. I heard him tell us, I don't know if I'd mentioned to you, but 25 years ago, I worked with the guy that had founded Zappos, which eventually got acquired
oh,
by
okay.
Amazon.
Mhm.
And when Amazon bought them, I saw this video of Bezos telling a story where in the early days of Amazon, they had a glitch on their website where somebody, what was it? Somebody could return an order that they hadn't purchased and get money credited to their credit card.
Oh, whoops.
Yeah, it's like a great opportunity for scammers. But Bezos just let out his, his big laugh that he's famous for, and said,
Yeah.
it was a learning experience for us.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And I'm sure they figured out to not let that happen
Yeah,
again.
exactly. Yeah, those were the fun days because, like, in the early days of the internet, at least we could all admit none of us knew what we were doing. Nowadays, especially for the generation that's grown up with it, I think they feel a pressure that they have to be more prolific than they do. And my
Mm.
experience with entrepreneurship is, I told Kevin this. My first three businesses that I started were complete strikeouts. Even though one of them I raised a bunch of venture capital money, still we were toast a year later. My fourth business did great, and every time I would feel really down about that, what I recognized was I was the same person each time. Some ideas work better than others. It's the reality.
Mm.
So, I think it's a process of elimination thing. If you're selling widgets on Amazon and your business isn't going that well, go through the steps to figure out how to do better. But at some point, you may say, maybe the widgets are not what's selling. Maybe I need to sell some other product. And a lot of times I've seen entrepreneurs through some accident of happenstance fall into their big idea. But to
Mhm.
get there, they just had to start. They just had to
Mhm.
acknowledge, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to go out there, take some risk, put in some sweat equity, and just do it. And it's really fun to watch people take that journey.
Absolutely, absolutely, because you learn so much more when you're in the arena doing than just learning. And so that's another thing too for folks is make sure take something and implement it because you don't want to end up 6 months later feeling all this pressure like, oh, I learned all this stuff, but at this summit and I didn't do anything with it. We want you to write us and say, wow, I got all this value because I took these actions from what I learned, and here's the results I got out of it. Those are the emails I love. All right. So before we get into some things with, kind of where things are going, because as you mentioned, you've been in the internet business
Since the
world
beginning.
for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I really want to get your thoughts on kind of where you're seeing things going. But before we do that, I want to give just a quick plug. If you're watching this, make sure you stick around to the end because Jason is from Quiet Light Brokerage, one of our sponsors of the Brand Mastery Summit. And I was thinking at the end, we'll do a giveaway of, I don't even know how many summits it is at this point, but Quiet Light has been a sponsor of several of them. And so I'll have to go through and figure out which ones you guys have been a sponsor of. And we'll just give some lucky winner access to all of them. And so it's a decent number of them at this point. I'm pretty sure it's the majority of the summits I've done. Quiet Light has been a sponsor of. So we will provide that at the end. And so just make sure to stick around to the end because you have to be here live to see that. So if you're watching the replay, come to another live session because I like giving stuff away because it's fun. But with that, Jason, tell us a little bit about where do you see things going? Because you've been around since people were.
Yeah. My first. Yeah, exactly. That's the modem sound for any of you who don't know
Right.
what the reference was that Kevin was making. Yeah, I had kind of good timing. I graduated college in 1994, and I grew up in a town called Sunnyvale, which is right in the heart of Silicon Valley. I was 5 minutes from Apple, 5 minutes from a lot of the big tech companies that sprouted. So I happened to be right place, right time, even though I had no tech skills. And in the early days of the internet, anything went. And one of the most interesting observations in the last couple of years, it has felt a little bit like a rhyme of the early internet days. So I imagine most of the people watching are, 20 to 30, maybe 40 years old, probably in that group. And they've heard of the dot-com bubble and the dot-com explosion, which is, back in my day, you could start a business, slap .com on the end of it, and go out and raise a ton of money. And people were selling hopium, just the dream that one day my business is going to make money. Then we had a massive correction, and like even the really good companies dropped 95% in value. And from about, that went on from 2000 to 2002. You had to stand on your own 2 feet. Your company had to be profitable. And then we had a long kind of sideways period. In the last 2 or 3 years, I mean, it's been an amazing rhyme of the bubble times. You've seen meme stocks, you've seen cryptos, you've seen NFTs, you've seen all sorts of idea stocks, Rivian, all sorts of stuff where they're getting incredible, crazy valuations without making any profit. And if history's a guide, at some point, all companies have to stand on their own 2 feet. And Kevin and I did a separate interview where I showed where I think we are in the business cycle. And I think we've gone from euphoria in late 2021. Right now, I think we're in denial, which I hate to say it, but I feel like the market is likely to get weaker rather than stronger. So what that means is if you're operating a business, just be thinking, how do I stand on my own 2 feet? Am I losing money on certain products? Do I have too many ASINs? Am I not focused? Am I in the wrong countries? Am I living off borrowed money? Those are the kind of things I would try to correct now. If you're thinking of exiting, like selling your business one day, I think it's important to figure out if you want to sell in the relative near term, I would do it sooner rather than later. Or, in my opinion, be prepared to ride out a storm and maybe sell in 3 or 4 years. Again, this is just based on what I've seen. So, Kevin, even since we did our interview, I told you in that interview that at Quiet Light, our sales of other people's businesses were up 50% year to date. I checked it again this morning. We are dead flat with last year. So that whole premium has evaporated in the 4 weeks or 3 weeks since we talked, which is that was amazing to me. So I think it's important for people to figure out their goals, write them down, and decide: am I an operating business? Am I in the growth stage? Do I want to invest for growth? Am I willing to lose money for a while? If so, how much? What's my pain point where I have to be profitable? And this is the time to make a plan, because I think we've been living in a period where it was hopium and any business could kind of survive and do well for a while. And I think that's coming to an end.
So what are some things someone should think about if they're deciding whether they just want to be an operating business, kind of operating on their own 2 feet, or if they want to be a growth business to potentially exit soon?
Yeah, I don't know that they're mutually exclusive. So my view of growth, with my first company, I raised 10 million of venture capital money and we put it all into quote unquote growth. We only ever had 100 grand of total revenue. Yeah. After blowing 10 million bucks on heaven knows what. My fourth company, I went out of pocket 300 bucks and had 15 million of revenue. My view of growth is that whatever your idea is, figure out how to test it cheap. Figure out how to do a really inexpensive A/B test. Are my customers going to like, this product or that product? Test them against each other. Let the data objectively tell you. Maybe your idea was great. Maybe it sucked. Let the data tell you. Listen to the data. If your idea sucked, go back to what you were doing before. If your idea was great, implement it. And I really believe only one test at a time. Design the test ahead of time so that you know what success looks like and what failure looks like. One of the challenges I've seen is people have so many ideas. As entrepreneurs, that's our job, is to have ideas. So they implement 5 things at once, and then the business grows. And then they're like, which one of these levers moved the needle? And then they start putting money into the wrong stuff because they didn't analyze it and do it in a very step-by-step kind of way. So again, I don't think that growth and running a good operating business are mutually exclusive. I think growing should be done in a conservative, step-by-step way, not just throwing money at the wall.
That's such a good point, because sometimes there's, and this might be somewhat of a controversial statement and might conflict with what some people are saying, even in the summit. But I do think sometimes people go too aggressively on like, I need to be at the top of the search for this keyword or whatever. And it's like, there's no trophy for that.
Here's a great story. Back in my day, one of my businesses, I was doing lead generation for real estate agents and mortgage brokers. And I was buying a bunch of ads on Google. And I was doing the Google AdWords in its early days. And one of my customers said, hey, Jason, we don't need any leads for the next 3 weeks. Just put all of your bids down to 5 cents, which was the minimum bid where you could still maintain your ads at the time. And what I discovered was I went down to 5 cents. My lead volume stayed almost the same, but my profitability doubled because I wasn't spending more than I had to. So then I never told the customer. I just kept my bids at 5 cents forever. And it was one of these accidental epiphanies where the light bulb went off, said, wow, I don't have to be number 1 in the search rankings. I could be number 3 and make a lot more money. It's those kind of epiphanies where we let the data tell us what our minds may not be willing to tell us.
Exactly. Because sometimes we think like, oh, okay, there's this competitive keyword, and if I get to the top of it, then I won the competition. But it's not about the competition. It's about money in your pocket, because you can't say to Bank of America or Chase, hey, I'm depositing top of page 1. You can say, here's my profit. And so sometimes less sales can actually end up being more money in your pocket, because you're doing it in a way that's not as expensive. And so you have to try these different tests.
Well, and if one day, if you want to sell your business, it's based on the profitability. So, I get people call me a lot. They're like, well, I've got 10 million in sales and no profits. What can you get from me? I'm like, I don't know, maybe nothing, maybe something. So sometimes we can sell those, sometimes we can't. So I totally agree with your statement. And I remember I had a fantastic keyword on one of my businesses where I could bid on it and I could get a lot of traffic, but I was losing money on every click. And, you're not going to make it up on volume if you're losing money on every sale. So
exactly. And one example I sometimes give is like marker is not as maybe as a high volume keyword, but maybe blue marker for flip charts is going to do a lot better for you because that's relevant to what the product is. But if you just go after something too broad, maybe you're only hurting yourself. Maybe you're getting a lot of top line sales, but it's maybe too expensive.
There's a lot of truth to it. And my experience has been, you don't know what's going to work until you test it. So like, I think every week have a list of here's 5 tests I want to do with my business. I want to try, this product versus that. I want to try this color versus that. I want to try this ad copy versus that ad copy. And again, the main thing is don't just set it and forget it. Figure out ahead of time what's success, what's failure, do the test, end the test, decide if it was a success, turn it on, keep it going. And if it was a failure, just make a note of it. Like, okay, I learned a lesson there.
Exactly. And have a good idea of what success and failure looks like ahead of time,
Yeah, because otherwise you don't know when you're there. If you don't know, if you don't know what you're aiming for.
Exactly. All right. So if anyone has any questions regarding, the market, where things are going, none of us have a crystal ball, but Jason at least has experience behind him. I've got my experience from, being in the e-commerce world for about 7 years now. So, we're more than happy to answer any questions you have. And just remember, sometimes if if you participate, it could be beneficial for you. So,
Well,
with
one of the fascinating things that I've witnessed was if somebody wanted to sell an Amazon Seller Central business, or nowadays we call it FBA businesses because most people have their fulfillment by Amazon. There were no buyers probably 6 or 7 years ago. We would get laughed at when we would put those businesses to market because buyers would say, "You're totally dependent on Amazon. Amazon is Big Brother. They can kill you at any time according to their terms and conditions. You're not allowed to transfer your account." There were all these objections, and then all of a sudden, the aggregators rose out of nowhere, probably about 3 years ago, and it became an accepted asset class that you could sell your Amazon business. And an interesting thing about that is, back when they weren't really sellable, your whole choice was run it as an operating business for cash flow. Now people can make the choice that, well, maybe I want to exit, and maybe half of all the revenue you ever get from your business is on the day that you exit. So it's a little bit of a different planning process.
Yes, it's all about figuring out, where is it that where are you in the cycle, so to speak? Is that a fair way to say it?
Yeah. So someone asked, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, Tunke, I think said, what do you think about Q4 this year?
What do you think about Q4?
Well, I guess it depends specifically what we're asking. But if the question is about exiting a business, most of the 12 years that I've been selling, I've been telling people, usually someone will call me and say, should I sell my business? And I will tell them, fix this, fix that, call me back in 6 months or 12 months. What I've been saying this year is I would get things ready as soon as possible. The reason is I think we hit the peak around Q4 of last year. And there's a lot of changes. I mean, interest rates, everybody knows that in most parts of the world, interest rates have been going up. Interest rates are like gravity on investments. So most of the buyers, one way or another, they're using other people's money. And when their cost of capital is higher, as it has been this year, it makes the value of the businesses lower. Now, there's a lot of speculation. Maybe the Fed is done raising interest rates, or maybe they'll taper it down, or maybe inflation has peaked. We don't know. That's all speculation, and it could be true. All I can tell you is that as of now, businesses are still selling, and I've definitely seen droughts where they just don't sell. So it's more of a binary question. Can I sell it versus not? Q4 historically is a good time of year to sell. Like after Labor Day in America, which is early September, a lot of buyers tend to show up. But again, I would say sooner rather than later in this market environment. I think Jamie asked.
Well, hold on real quick before we get to that. Tunke, I did say I would reward participation. So email me. I'm not necessarily going to do this for everybody who participates, but because you were the first. Email me, kevin@maximizingecommerce.com, and I'll give you either VIP access to this summit, or if you already have a VIP ticket, I'll give you something else. So I'll take care of it. All right. So Jamie asked the question, what are some best practices to get your Amazon store ready to sell?
Yeah, good. Excellent question. So one of the big things to understand, Jamie, is most Amazon sellers are familiar with the aggregators, and there's probably 100 of them, maybe 120. There's a lot of them. They are not the only buyers. And what we've witnessed this year is they don't always even offer the best deals anymore compared to the tens of thousands of other internet buyers out there. So with aggregators, a sale is generally relatively quick and easy. They can look in the back end of your Seller Central account. They might ask you to install Seller Board to help figure out how much you're earning. Most of the other buyers, they need to see clean financials. And what I mean by clean is an actual bookkeeper who understands QuickBooks or Xero or some sort of bookkeeping software, keeping track of your business in accrual-based financial bookkeeping. Accrual basically means that if you're selling products, you recognize the revenue, the sales income and the expenses according to what actually sold or was purchased, or what actually sold in a given month. So for instance, if you're selling glass, where's my camera? Glass.
There you go.
And you sell 100 units this month for $10, and it costs you $10 a unit, then your cost of goods sold is $1,000 in accrual-based financing. But most people by default do cash-based financing, which buyers don't like it as much. Cash basis means I didn't buy any products last month, so my cost of goods for last month is $0, and I bought $10,000 this month, so my cost of goods sold is $10,000. Buyers do not like that. So the biggest suggestion is have your books done in accrual basis, preferably by an e-commerce bookkeeper who understands e-commerce, and try to have at least 2 to 3 years of clean bookkeeping ready at the time that you're going to market. It makes the sale so much easier. That's the biggest thing. Also, it's good to have any sales tax liability issues taken care of before you go to market, because that becomes a headache a lot. It's good to not have your personal email associated with your Amazon business, because when you go to transfer it, it becomes a question mark, who gets your personal email. So try to make your business transferable. Think, if I wasn't involved, how do I make this easy to hand off to somebody else?
Silly question. I don't know if I've even had anyone ask this. Can you change the email address on your Amazon account?
we have all sorts of threads at Quiet Light, and I demur when it comes to specifics because it's always changing. So I'm not going to comment. I've just seen issues pop up with this, so it's something to research ahead of time.
Something better to do early on, because as we all know, sometimes dealing with support at Amazon's great at a lot of things, but that doesn't seem to be one of their things they're looking to excel at.
Support is rough, but
support is rough, especially probably for changing something like that. They probably look at it as like potentially like security issues. So there's probably a lot you have to do. So I wouldn't wait till the last minute, the night before closing, right?
Yeah. The other thing I'll comment on is, let's see, I always get this backwards when I'm on videos. This up and to the right for you?
You're going the other way around.
Is that to the okay?
Yeah.
Up and to the right is how we all want our businesses to run. And frequently I'll see someone that, their business is going up and to the right, then it flattens out and starts going down, and then they call me and say, can you sell the business? You're going to get a heck of a lot more money selling on the way up than you will on the way down. Because by the time it's on the way down, buyers are very skeptical, and they're saying, what's going on? Why is the business going down? Is it going to recover? On the way up, they're much more excited. So that's the hardest part of the discipline, is to leave some gas in the tank for the next owner, but it makes your sales so much more likely to occur if things are still improving during the sales process.
Gotcha. Now, one question I have is, I hear a lot of times talk about, and thank you, Jamie, for your question. One question I see a lot of times, or not a question I see, but just talk when I hear people talk about selling their business is, talk about like, make sure you share everything with the potential buyer so that there's not surprises and they trust you. But like, sometimes how do you even think about the things they might even ask that you just take for granted? Because like those fish behind you, or like if you ask them about the water, they're just going to say, what's water? Because they're in it all the time.
Exactly.
So how do you know what are the things that a buyer might even think about?
I think it's important to think through, if you were buying somebody else's business, what kinds of things would you want to know about? Have there ever been any legal issues, any threats of legal issues? Is there a disgruntled former employee out there? Do you have a former business partner who stole your idea and copied you? Do you have people spoofing your product on Amazon and selling counterfeits? Is your manufacturing, did your manufacturer tell you that they're going to cut you off in 3 months or raise the prices? All of this kind of stuff comes under the area of disclosure. Real world example, just 2 weeks ago, my son wanted to sell a little Lego minifigure on a website called Bricklink where you can sell this stuff. And it was a rare Lego figure, but it had a crack in the torso, a hairline crack that you couldn't even see. So I helped him write the ad, and I said, hairline crack in the torso, and I took a picture and drew an arrow to it. And my son's like, Dad, why? Dad, stop. You're going to make people not want it. We sold it in a day. He sold this one piece for 20 bucks because the people knew we were telling the truth, because people that were lying don't tell you the bad news. So I'm absolutely say disclose, disclose, disclose. You will get so much more credibility for admitting the things that are less than perfect, because they're going to come out anyway. And if a buyer discovers it without you pointing it out, then your credibility is going to be in question.
Great advice. Great advice. Yeah, sometimes it's better just to be upfront about things, and sometimes we worry that other people are going to care so much. But if you were buying a business, it's not going to be perfect. Like if you ever bought a house, and you bought a house and it was 20 years old, and the inspector came back and said everything is perfect, you're probably not going to believe it. You're probably going to think, okay, something's going to be wrong with the AC, or some walls needs new drywall, or I don't even know if that's a thing, but like there might be something that's going to come up.
And it's the timing of the disclosures too. You don't want to wait till someone starts to ask you questions after you've been talking to this buyer for 3 weeks. They ask you a question and then you bring up the disclosure. You want to think of this stuff ahead of time, because with these deals, I'd say maybe 50% of it is based on the business and the evaluation of the business, and the other 50% is based on trust with the seller. Buyers do not buy from people they don't trust, because they don't know what skeletons are in the closet. The best way to build trust is to admit things that are hard to admit, because it gives you credibility. It shows that you're not afraid of conflict. You're not afraid of potentially scaring off the buyer. You're committed to the truth. And paradoxically, by admitting all the bad stuff, it makes them trust you more, and it's more likely that you're going to be able to sell your business.
Gotcha. Great advice there. All right. So I did promise that we would do a giveaway. We're getting to the top of the hour here pretty quick. So I did promise we would do a giveaway. So I want to thank Jason from Quiet Light for being here. And Quiet Light has been a sponsor of many of the summits that I have done, at least the majority of them, if not more than a majority. So let's do this. If you would like access to all of the summits Quiet Light has sponsored, which I'm going to have to go back in and do research, but I'm kind of coming up with this one on the fly. In the comments, whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, just put in quiet, Q-U-I-E-T, as in not loud, but quiet, because Quiet Light is there. I won't make you write out the word light, because sometimes that can be too many letters. So just 5 letters, quiet. And then we will do a drawing. And by drawing, I'm going to use a random number generator to come up with them. So we do have some starting to come in. So again, if you hear this, because not everyone's listening to this live, some people, even if they're watching it live, they're rewound a little bit. So if you're just now starting to hear this, just type in the words quiet, or the word quiet, into the chat. And it doesn't matter if it's on YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn. I'm going to give just a moment for this, because not all platforms even go at the same speed. Some are broadcasting differently. So like, sometimes if I had the TV in the same channel in the living room in the front and the living room in the back of the house, I could hear them both, but they're not going to be synchronized. It's sometimes even worse than that with live streams. If you're watching, and one person's watching on YouTube, another person's watching on Facebook. So we do have a handful of people.
Another person is listening as they drive down the freeway.
Right. If you're driving, just gently pull off to the side and in a safe manner, then type in the word quiet. If not, just keep on trucking. But we do have, we only have a handful of people that have put in quiet so far. We have substantially more people watching live. So your chances are pretty good of winning. And so each of these summits is worth about $200 in price if I was to sell it at the retail price. And so you could be looking at, $1,500-ish in value of based on the number of summits. I'd have to go back and check the actual number, but it's going to be pretty good. And so you're talking about a lot of content, probably well over 100 hours worth of valuable content. All you got to do is type in the word quiet into the chat. So I'm going to start putting in names here. So actually, Jason, do you see the comments, right? See,
yeah.
It looks like it starts with Sally Ann Thrifty.
Yep.
All right, so let me first share my screen. So we're nice and transparent about what we're doing. So we've got Sally and I can spell. This is live. And then what's the next one?
Yvonne.
Yvonne.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Jamie.
And
KL.
KL. Okay. All right. So this is going to be last call here, guys. So if you're and gals, so if you're watching this and you've not yet put your name into the chat by just typing the word quiet, so we know that you're interested in winning all access to all of the summits in the past that Quiet Light has been a sponsor of. All you got to do is put in the word quiet. As you can see, we've only got 4 right now. So you give yourself a very good shot. It's amazing how when we do these things at the end, people, I think, sometimes just like watching to see who wins, but then they forget they can participate. This is not like watching Family Feud. You get to be part of this. It's not just these 4 people are the approved winners. You could be if you're watching this. So because I know there is a little bit of a delay, but I'm not going to keep everybody here all day. So I'm going to say we are going to last call. So last call means going once, going twice. We have now 4 participants. So I'm going to put in a random number generator between 1 and 4. So 1 is our winner. So Sally Ann Thrifty. Lori, sorry, just missed it. So Sally Ann, you won. So just email Kevin at maximizingecommerce.com, letting me know you won the Quiet Light contest, and that'll give you access to all of the summits in the past that Quiet Light has been a sponsor of, including this one, to make sure you have access to that. Lori, thank you for jumping in there at the last moment, but unfortunately we had already started it. But thank you, everyone. Everyone is a winner because we have lots of great content, and we have sessions starting tomorrow. Thank you for the excellent sportsmanship there, Jamie. We do have sessions coming out tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern time, so make sure to check them out. And we have sessions Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Once we add them, we will not take them away until at least midnight on Friday. You can upgrade to VIP by going to maximizingecommerce.com/VIP. And if you upgrade to VIP and you're watching this on what time is this now? The 15th, then you will be able to get the lowest price we're going to offer between now and the end of the summit, because the price is going to keep going up. So make sure to take advantage of that. And on Friday, you can watch a session by someone that you've gotten to know here. Jason's session will come out on Friday. So make sure to check that out when it comes available, and you will get some of Jason's feedback on where he sees things going. So congratulations, Sally Ann. So yeah, don't forget to email Kevin at maximizingecommerce.com. And everyone who joined us and made it all the way through, whether live or on the replay, we appreciate it. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks.